And hello, everyone on StreamYard. We're about to bring you the Ag Issues program coming up here in just a bit. We're just about ready to start the program on 580 WIBW, which we will go live on 580 here in just a bit, and then obviously with StreamYard here in just a bit. And we've got two guests on the program, Janet Bailey, the CEO of the Kansas Dairy Association and Commission, and also Justin Ohlde, who is the chair of the Kansas Dairy Commission, CEO of Ohlde Family Farms. They are scheduled to join us here shortly. And we'll get to the open on the program here in just a second, and then we will go from there. So stand by, and we'll go here shortly. Good morning, everyone. Glad to have you with us on the program this morning as we celebrate Dairy Month in the state of Kansas. We're going to be joined here in just a bit by Justin Ohlde, the chair of the Kansas Dairy Commission and CEO of Ohlde Family Farms near Lynn, Kansas in Washington County. We're also going to be joined by Janet Bailey, who is the CEO of the Kansas Dairy Association and Commission as well. A lot to talk about. What's going on in the Kansas dairy industry, and we will do that coming up on this morning's Ag Issues program right here on 580 WIBW. But before we do that, let's get a check of the forecast. Okay, for those of you on StreamYard, we are currently doing an update on the weather forecast on 580 WIBW, and more chances for moisture out in the forecast. But also, we could see some triple-digit temperatures here in the state of Kansas. And if you look at some of the latest conditions, it's very nice here in our part of the state. Actually, only 170-degree reading right now in the state of Kansas, or at least of the official reporting stations, which on June 7th, I think we'll all take, because as we all know, here in our part of the state, that at 5 in the morning, we've seen it as high as 80 degrees, and we'd just as soon avoid that as much as we can. That will be coming up here in just a bit. And we'll actually may ask Justin, just for you, Justin, about the weather coming up here when we get back live here on the program. So we will be back with you here shortly as we continue with the weather forecast on 580 WIBW. So just filling a little bit of time before we go live on 580 WIBW and also here on StreamYard. So hopefully everyone joined their Friday morning as we're going to get to celebrate June being Dairy Month here in the state of Kansas. So stand by, and we will be back with you here in just a minute. Thank you very much, meteorologist Dan Holliday, with an update on the forecast. Right now in the capital city, we have a clear sky, 59 degrees at Beloit Airport, 56 degrees this morning at Fords Field. Temperatures across most of the listening area are in the 50s, but the further you go into north central Kansas and down into the south central and south or north central parts of the state, you have temperatures that are in the 60s, but light winds and calm conditions right now as well. But the humidity is high, but with temperatures as low as they are, it's still pretty pleasant outside. This morning on the Ag Issues program, we celebrate the month of June as Dairy Month in the state of Kansas. And joining us to do that is Justin Ohlde, the chair of the Kansas Dairy Commission and the CEO of Ohlde Family Farms. Justin, good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much. And we're also joined by Janet Bailey, who serves as the CEO of the Kansas Dairy Association and Commission as well. Janet, good morning.
Good morning. Happy June Dairy Month.
Yes, absolutely. And Justin, we just heard about the weather, so I'm kind of curious, up in Washington County, how's the weather been faring up there?
It's really been fantastic. I was telling somebody I'll take a spring like this every year. It seems like the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, we go from winter to summertime and it's just blazing hot all of a sudden. And temperatures have been mild. We were really dry coming into the growing season, but we've gotten really great moisture the last 6 weeks. So that's out of a couple spots with some hail. Yeah, I really couldn't. We've been very blessed. Couldn't be a whole lot better right now.
Justin, I'm going to continue here as we celebrate Dairy Month in the state of Kansas. You're chair of the Kansas Dairy Commission, and I didn't realize it's almost been 30 years, 29 years since the Kansas Dairy Commission was established, but a lot of work has been done in those 29 years since back in 1995.
Yeah, no, it's a group of dairymen that started it back then. They wanted a voice out there, so they started it. My dad was part of it, if not initially, pretty closely thereafter. So, no, I think we've had a positive impact in the state. I'm always looking to try to help dairy producers, and then yeah, with research and development and yeah, do what we can.
Janet, one of the things that we have definitely seen with the dairy industry in the state is its continued growth. But that also means there's also been growth, but the need for financial help as well. But that's something that has been a constant work, not only for you within the state legislature, but in many other ways as well.
Greg, it has, for the past 30 years, we've seen structural change in the dairy industry. And that's not unlike what we've seen in other segments of the protein sector in agriculture, where, we've seen operations change. And we still are predominantly family operations throughout the dairy industry. But, where years ago, and Justin's a great example, where years ago, he and his brothers may have each opted to have individual dairy farms. Today they've created a structure where they operate together with their dad. And so they have 3 of the 4 brothers and their dad in a dairy farm, and have created an opportunity for some additional enterprises. Not only do they gain efficiency, but that's a way that the brothers with their skill sets could come back into family operations. And we see that throughout the state. So there's growth, there's an opportunity for homegrown talent, our dairy families, to bring the next generation in by diversification. And we have examples of that with current dairy families who maybe are choosing to add an enterprise or create a specialization. So that growth and that development in the dairy industry is something that is homegrown, that we don't get an opportunity to talk about, in addition to those dairies that have chosen to come to Kansas because of our favorable climate, both the weather and the support and appreciation for our dairy industry, and they want to farm in Kansas, and we want dairy farms in Kansas. So it's really a pretty exciting story, as we see these families in a changing and very dynamic industry.
Justin, it's amazing to think, but just an example is the growth of the Kansas dairy industry. 2.2 billion has directly contributed by the dairy industry to the state of Kansas as well, but also means it's a growing industry, as we talked about with Janet, but what the dairy industry is able to do and contribute to the Kansas economy.
Yeah, no, I think it's been very exciting. Yeah, when I was younger, there wasn't much. And I'm 41 for reference, but a lot of smaller herds and everything, and then a lot of guys started moving in, particularly the western part of the state here, late 90s, early 2000s, I believe, maybe mid 90s. Yeah, and we've had some growth, a lot of innovation. A lot of that's it's been a great state to do that in. K-State's helped with that, I believe, and the people economy of Kansas. And with Hillmar and everything else coming in, it's like we have a shot. I don't know if we'll get to the top 5 dairy producing state in the U.S., but I think we will be close here in the next couple of years. So just as a dairyman, I think that's exciting. And yeah, I think we have a great economic impact in the state. A lot of us are in smaller rural towns, and you kind of look at our payroll and what we do for taxes and everything else, and I think it's a benefit in a lot of different ways.
And Janet, we talk about the growth, with the new dairy plant in Southwest, or soon to be new dairy plant in Southwest Kansas, but also the influx of families we've seen the past several years who have come to the state of Kansas who are dairy producers. But that's all rolled up into, was it 2022, the needs and assessment that was funded. But it really showed some of the things and potential growth you've had, but the potential that you have here in the state of Kansas too.
It really does. We're projected to go from roughly about 170,000, almost 180,000 cows today to 300,000 cows in the state of Kansas. And, with that growth, what that translates to in pounds of milk is about 4 billion pounds of milk, right? In 2022 numbers, with a projection that we will be producing about 7 billion pounds of milk in Kansas. None of that happens, though, without a concerted effort to make sure our dairy industry has a favorable climate, that we've got the research and development we need. And, these are still independent farmers when the day is done. And the dairy industry is very reliant upon the land grant system. And for that reason, the Dairy Commission, which is kind of our producer self-help commission, right? And the association, which is the voice for our Kansas dairy farmers, a priority for the last decade has been to ensure that we continue to have that backbone of research with a land grant dairy farm. And, sometimes farmers get accustomed to operating their own farms with baling wire and duct tape and getting by, right? But dairy farms, we have a regulatory environment such that we are producing directly on the farm a food product, and they are inspected regularly. And that's no exception with our university dairy. And they have absolutely hit it out of the park in terms of being able to produce a wholesome quality product at that university dairy. But it is absolutely falling apart. And our dairy farmers have known that for a decade. And so it has been a priority for 10 years that we see that dairy be rebuilt before, it can't be operated anymore because it's just at a state that it's not possible. We came close this year. The Kansas legislature did support funding for it. The governor wanted to see it go through what, normal channels was her veto message, meaning she wants K-State to put that in their request through the Board of Regents. And for that reason, the governor did veto it. She indicated she was supportive of the project, but she wants it to be in the K-State request. And that's the reason that it didn't get funded. So we're really hopeful that we can be successful, that can go through the Board of Regents process in this next year, and that we can see a new dairy at K-State. It's just so vitally important, as we address those issues, and also as we attract talent and train the next generation for the dairy industry, not only those who are wanting to own and operate farms, but those who service them. We have robotic dairies, we have carousels, the cow merry-go-rounds, as some people call them. And we need folks who understand how to service them. We need continued research on what is optimal for those. And that really happens when we have a great land grant partner, such as Kansas State University.
And you talk about the future, Janet, of the dairy industry. And recently, or this past school season, the Dairy Commission awarded scholarships this spring to several deserving students.
The commission did, and it's always great when, again, we've got some homegrown talent, and Sophia Leach from Linwood is one of those individuals. She's chosen to go to school. She had a great opportunity out of state, but many of our Kansas dairy families know the Leach family, and she was awarded the Warren Winter Scholarship, named in honor of one of the individuals who helped to found the association and commission. And she was awarded our scholarship by the commission. And then additionally, the commission started 2 scholarships at the K-State Little American Royal. And those are great opportunities to support 2 people who may or may not have a dairy background. And so 2 young people were awarded those scholarships: Liliana Rivas, who's an animal sciences and industry major, and Sarah Lucas, who's an animal sciences major, pre-vet option. That K-State Dairy exposes many of our pre-vet students to their very first large animal experience. And so when we have pre-vet majors who take a real interest in dairy as undergraduates, we know that is a way that hopefully we help address some of the need for large animal veterinarians. And many people are aware of how short we are with that specialty. So it's always exciting when we see pre-vet students take an interest and either work on or be exposed to dairy through the university dairy.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk more about the Kansas dairy industry with Justin Ohlde, the CEO of the Kansas Dairy Commission, and Janet Bailey, CEO of the Kansas Dairy Commission and Association as well. This is Ag Issues here on 580 WIBW. Okay, we are 10-4. We are in a commercial break right now, and Justin, I saved the question about the Distinguished Dairy Award, since that you're going to talk about your mom and dad. So,
okay. What else are you thinking?
Probably after we talk about your mom and dad with the Distinguished Service Award, we will probably go into just a simple question. What is attracting people to the state of Kansas, be it families and or companies that are coming in? And then obviously the issue, or the what I sent you earlier on that email, just a brief thing about the HPAI.
Okay.
To talk about that. So, all right. For all those who are with us on StreamYard, we're in a commercial break here on 580 WIBW. As jokingly as I always say, trying to do this, I've got the StreamYard audio in one ear, and I've got the program audio in the other ear. So, jokingly, I have a lot of things bouncing in my head right at the moment. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So if I look confused, that's why.
That's got to be difficult listening to one or two people and talking at the same time, sounding coherent. So,
believe me. It's the little secrets that we let out that, yep, you get confused sometimes.
And I can't find exactly, but Kansas was not in the top 20 in the early 90s from a production standpoint.
Correct. I'd have to check.
Stand by. We're back on the Ag Issues program this morning here on 580 WIBW, celebrating June as Dairy Month in the state of Kansas. So if you, go out for ice cream, whatever the case may be, please do so to celebrate Dairy Month here in the state of Kansas. Our guest this morning, Justin Ohlde, who is the chair of the Kansas Dairy Commission and CEO of Ohlde Family Farms, and also joined by Janet Bailey, the CEO of the Kansas Dairy Association and Commission. Justin, before the break, we had asked Janet to talk about the recent honorees with scholarships, but also Kansas State University honored the 2024 Kansas Distinguished Dairy Award. And I figured I'd probably let you handle that, Justin, because it happens to be your mom and dad, Steve and Cindy Ohlde, who were honored with that award.
Yeah, no, they were very honored, humbled to receive that. I was happy for them to get it. I know they both, between, dad, working as long as he did, and then mom putting up with it and raising us kids and everything else, it took both of them to get to where we are. So, no, I'm very proud, happy that they were able to receive that. Appreciate the people that recognized them.
And a couple of your answers on the questions earlier, Justin, I'm going to start with you. As you look at the growth in the state of Kansas, what do you think is the biggest thing that attracts people, not only families, but companies who want to come in to the state of Kansas to establish a dairy operation?
Well, there is, I know you asked for one thing, but it's a few, I would say, major things. I would say one is water. Either the western part of the state where there's irrigation and whatnot. I mean, water leads to feed, leads to milking cows, essentially. So that's a huge, huge point. Environmentally, regulation-wise, Kansas is a good state to do business in. They're reasonable, on both sides of it, as far as taking care of the environment, but then also making a framework in which to work within. We've got a lot of space. That's a good thing. There's sparsely populated areas, which it doesn't hurt when you have a large animal operation. And we don't really have much for processing, but once again, with Hillmore coming in, you've got, some processors in the area and obviously centrally located. So from a freight standpoint, you can go north, any direction you want, being in the center of the country. So it's not real cheap to ship milk, and you want to keep that to a minimum, but we do have some options. So we can fill some different holes in different areas of the nation in different times of year. So, and then climate's not too bad either. It gets a little warmer in the summer, but other than that, it's not a bad climate for cows.
Janet, I'll pose the same thing to you as well, but any other additional comments that you'd like to add to that?
Well, I would go back also and just commend Steve and Cindy Ohlde both. Justin's very humble. Their family is very humble, but their willingness to be servant leaders in this industry and also to be so generous in giving, their children follow in that. It's wonderful to see them recognized. And I'd also give a mention to Dr. Joe Harner. Many remember working with Joe in his 40 plus years in extension as the state agriculture engineering extension specialist, and K-State honored Joe as well. So it was a pretty special day at our annual meeting to have these honorees. And they have done so much for our industry. And Joe has been instrumental in helping to figure out how we can optimize the environment in Kansas for all of these dairy operations, whether you're in Northeast Kansas and making some changes or building a new barn, to, being in Western Kansas or maybe in South Central Kansas, and you're trying to figure out, how you want to manage nutrients in a different way. Taking the knowledge that's available and making the most of it, because Kansas is very diverse in terms of those microclimates. And having people who have been available to help dairy farmers optimize in their location has been really significant. And we've had extension specialists over the years. In our dairy community, all you have to say is a last name, and it could have been somebody from 40 years ago. And Justin and I can mention somebody, and even when we were kids, we knew these folks in the industry. And it's that way today with our extension specialists. That makes a huge difference. These folks look at young people and say, I want them to have a future in the industry, and I want to help these farms be successful. And that spirit draws people to our state. There are times in certain industries that you see people who don't want to share, or who aren't real open to that type of camaraderie. And the dairy industry is a pretty special industry, where we've got people very much working for the benefit of all in the industry, from geography, size, scale, different interests.
All right, I know we're going to go over here, but I wanted to ask this to both of you as we end the program, and I would be remiss if I didn't ask about the HPAI issue, now officially found in 10 states in dairy cattle, as Iowa became that 10th state that reported a case of HPAI in dairy cattle. So I'll ask you both. Janet, I'm going to start with you. There's always a priority on biosecurity for any dairy operation as well. So how have, I guess, since this has all come about, what kind of comments, or how have you handled it as the CEO of the association and commission on discussing that issue with fellow producers who I'm sure have had questions that have come into you?
Absolutely. With those questions, and remember, we have the association and commission board. So I've got 14 farmers within those two boards as well. So we, in and amongst the leadership of our association commission alone, have a good chunk of our industry. And first and foremost, we recognize we've got a responsibility to ensure that the product that we're putting into the food chain is safe for consumers. And so on behalf of our farmers, we have been engaged to ensure that testing continues to be done, and advocate for that. And we know that pasteurized milk is safe in the marketplace. So what you see in the grocery stores, what you see in these summer feeding programs that kids can consume, that dairy product is safe, because any virus that would be found is killed virus. The same with cooking meat, properly cooking meat, which we should be doing all of the time anyway, right? We have safe products in the food supply. So that has been paramount. Additionally, with, our dairy farmers working to ensure that they can take steps to protect their herds and their neighbors with biosecurity. In what we know about the spread of the virus is where we have been positioned, because we want to protect our industry. We want to keep that product available, and we want to keep cows and workers on these operations as safe as we can.
And Justin, to you as well. I know for biosecurity, there's always a priority on the dairy operation. How have you handled the issue for the operation for you guys there in Washington County?
There's been a few things. We've made sure that our guys are following our protocols in place. For one, making sure they're washing, clean hands, gloves, all those types of things. We've monitored for if anybody doesn't feel good or not. We're always watching the cows. We've actually got collars on our cows. I call them Fitbits for cows. And they help show some of these herds early on. They would notice, they'd pick up on the activity about 2-3 days before they would show, from the cow standpoint, before they would show clinical symptoms. So that's one of the things that we're monitoring anyways, but just to try to give us a heads up if we do have something, which we haven't seen yet. Unfortunately, we try to do an open house about every other year, but we canceled it this year just because We didn't want to have any, just to be extremely, extremely cautious, make sure there's nothing that would happen, from a public standpoint. So we're hated to do that, but just wanted to err on the side of safety. So, yeah, I think those are a lot of things that we've done. We were washing tires and doing some different things like that. I don't know how much that truly really helps, but there's still a lot of things unknown. So we're trying to do the best we can. Obviously, have a safe melt in supply, but also not be chasing a whole bunch of things that aren't actually going to do anybody any good besides cause headaches. So. We got a lot of guys doing a lot of hard work, and we always hate to make their jobs even harder than it already is. So we always try to be cognizant of all that and balance safety versus what you need to do and putting extra things on the plate. So,
All right, we're going to put a cap on it there, but Justin Ohlde, who is the chair of the Kansas Dairy Commission, CEO of Ohlde Family Farms, really appreciate you coming on to the program today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Janet Bailey, the CEO of the Kansas Dairy Association and Commission. As always, great to talk to you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity, Greg.
This has been Ag Issues here on 580 WIBW. An update on the news headlines and a check of the weather is coming up next.